Раньше мы просто дома бухали, баешь, играешь в шахматы, сразу ты пьешь с ними.
Даня, если там мало народу уже... Мало сразу закрой двери.
Ждем чуваков.
Там же правильно все.
Ми, якщо що, вже готові.
Друзі, всім привіт! Привіт! Да. Радий вас всіх бачити. Давно не бачились. Хто був тиждень тому? Нормально. Головне, щоб не було тої жіночки, що в сумку так пиво накладала, бо, блін, це піздець. Сьогодні дуже важливий, цікавий івент. Дуже багато інформації англійської, але реально C-level від Linea. Тому готуйтеся до того, щоб сприймати велику кількість не дуже легкої інформації, але це буде дуже цікаво, я думаю. І у нас оцей The Road to Dencun – це один з 20 міст по світі, де проводиться мітап від Linea. Тому ваші оплески, ми будемо починати. Так, я зараз, щоб правильно вимовити. Перший спікер у нас онлайн. У нас буде, до речі, 4, мабуть, спікери онлайн. В основному англійська мова, тому... А хто, до речі, англійською нормально володіє слухати? Я не кажу говорити, слухати. О, супер. А інші люди, ви як взагалі? Такі, якщо будуть картинки прикольні, то нормально, да? Головне, щоб XP-шек насипали. Так. Да. Отже, перший спікер у нас Nicolas Liochon, Head of Linea в Consensys. Ваші оплески.
Hello.
Hey, the stage is yours. You're welcome.
Okay. Hello, everybody. So I'm going to do a presentation around Linea and basically what's the future of rollup, the way we see it. And just to introduce myself, I lead Linea, but I've come from a very technical background. And a lot of people in rollups have a background in cryptography. I actually have a background in distributed systems. I worked on this for quite a lot of time in the past. At Consensys, I've been working on research part on Ethereum 2. And in 2019, we said, actually the right solution for scalability, it's rollups. And we started to work on this basically 5 years ago. Consensys, in terms of research, does much more than this. We worked a lot on the merge. We worked on proof of stake. We worked on formal methods and zero-knowledge proof. But right now, what I'm focusing on is obviously rollups. And we're not doing any more applied research, but a product. It's kind of important because actually a lot of the things that you have in Linea are actually coming from this research, including things that were done 3, 4, 5 years ago. Like we're doing proof aggregation. It's actually done with a methodology and curves that were defined in 2020 and 21 with W6 family of curves. We're using GKR, which is sum check. You may hear quite often about sum check in cryptography. It's something that we were working on more than 4 years ago. And the arithmetization itself, the ZK EVM, the way you transform an execution to something that you can prove is something that was actually started 3 years ago. So this huge background is actually useful to understand how we see Linea and how we see the future of rollup, which is something with research, but with something that you can actually use in production as well. So, and when we speak about Linea, what is Linea? It's a ZK rollup, which means that we prove the execution of what we're doing. It's a ZK EVM, which means that we have exactly the same behavior as Ethereum layer 1, and we work at the bytecode level. And Linea, if you don't know that, is on mainnet since 2023, in July, a little bit more than 6 months ago. And we executed more than 60 million transactions. And I was checking a little bit earlier. Today, we're at 20 TPS. So we have a kind of reasonably production-proven scalability. A question when you're about this is what's next. And there's this small thing called compression. Basically, it allows you to multiply by 5 the capacity of your rollup for the same price in terms of layer 1. That's something that we pushed actually a few weeks ago. That's how we divided the price of transaction by 3 on Linea. Other ZK rollups will do it as well in the next weeks, I expect. This big thing is obviously this Dencun part, which is 4844. 4844, it's interesting to see that it allows to increase the capacity quite immediately. We're gonna be able to write around three blobs per block right now. But this scheme can be extended and basically by changing an option, which is a big option. So there we need to have a kind of agreement between all the layer one people. But it's still, from a software engineering point of view, it's something that is changing an option. So we do have some road for scalability. Interesting fact, right now, nobody cares really about the prover performances because all the cost is on the layer one. But in the future, after all those changes, the prover will take more and more importance in terms of cost. So all the work that we spent in the past on the prover is going to pay here, and there will be a lot of work for the implementation teams to make the prover part faster in ZK rollups. You can have a lot of debates if you know this terminology between what type of rollup are you? Are you type 1? Are you type 2? Are you type 3? I think we should expect at the end of the day all rollups to be type 1, which is basically a rollup behaves exactly the same as the mainnet, thanks to a small technology detail called Verkel trees that the Ethereum Foundation is pushing to the mainnet, and the rollup will be implementing. Here, basically, in 2 or 3 years, we can expect that we will have no real debates around the type of rollups. Something that you have some discussions about, but a little bit less, it's around execution layers. Execution layers, that's basically the component that is actually executing the transaction, get, Bezu, others. And the way I see it, we're a little bit in the same situation than 7 years ago. If you were there, people 7 years ago were saying, oh, I'm going to be much faster than Ethereum thanks to my new consensus algorithm, consensus protocol. And people were saying, yeah, but the hard part of Ethereum is not the consensus, it's the size of the state and how you can be very quickly in executing the transactions, and the consensus on it is it's a much simpler problem. And we're a little bit at the same stage as ZK rollups. Everybody knows how to do something like 50 TPS, 100 TPS, but there will be a lot of investment, and Consensys is going to do that for Linea, around having actually very fast clients. And we think that something like 1,000 TPS for a single rollup is absolutely possible. So there's a team working on this at Consensys on Bezu client, which is Bezu client is implemented by Consensys, Linea being a part of Consensys. And another point that is quite interesting to think about in the future is what is called multi-prover. And something that when you look at the ZK VM and all the cryptography that you have behind this, it's something incredibly complicated. It's very advanced cryptography with tens and tens of academic papers being used. The ZKVM specification itself for us, it's something like 500 pages. The implementation is 1,000 lines of code. And there's a huge complexity there. The schemes can be wrong, the implementation can be buggy. That's complicated. And that's complicated for us, that's complicated for everybody. But there's something very nice with all the ZK EVMs that people are looking at. I mean, when I say all, it's not so many, it's actually 3. But 3 is already quite good. Is everybody's using a different way to represent the transformation to something we can prove, and everybody is using a different way to prove. Different schemes, some people will be using Allo2, some people will be using Stark, and we're using some commitment with lattices, some GKR, which I mentioned. So the nice thing about this is the probability to have the same bug in all the ZK EVMs is actually quite low. Which means that when we will advance in the completeness, typically when all of us will be type 1, it will be quite possible to build what is called a multi-prover rollup, which is a single rollup secured by multiple ZK EVMs themselves using these very different technologies that I mentioned. And you arrive to something like a consensus-oriented system, a little bit like on the layer one, and you're gonna have a security in a perfect world. You will have 4 different implementations, and if 3 of them are proving something, you can believe that it's likely right. So this will improve a lot the security, and this is something that means basically that you can expect rollups to scale quite a lot, and you can expect rollups to be very secure. So when we said that, what's the point a little bit? And I think that's where the debate is right now. What we're saying is, okay, guys, rollups are gonna scale, which means that the transactions will remain cheap, will be cheap, and will remain reasonably cheap. How much, let's be clear, we don't know exactly, and it's gonna take quite a while before it's really to the bottom. But compared to mainnet, we will be 40, 100 times cheaper, so it's something that is already opening a new world. And that's where, when you want to write applications for rollups, it's interesting to think about what do you want to do. Do you want to target existing use cases on existing users, which is basically this debate around we migrate the users from the layer 1 to the layer 2, and it's already very useful because we still have far too many users on the layer 1. But do you want as well to, for those existing use cases, find new users, expecting that because now the transactions are cheaper, you can open those use cases to more people? Or do you want to say that you will want new use cases for the existing users, which is now the transactions are cheaper, so I can open those use cases? And it's far from being easy. I mean, I think that mostly everybody is basically doing DeFi and some variations on DeFi, but there's really a lot of opportunities around just doing DeFi for new type of people, or just doing something different than the common DeFi that you're currently seeing. Something that is, I think, very important at this point as well when it comes to growth and when it comes to new users is the importance of the user experience that is often forgotten. And we're coming from a background where people were basically visionaries. They had this long-term view. In 10 years, things will be like this. In 15 years, things will be like this. We're going to change the world, and so on and so on. But when you want to build a great user experience, you should not be looking at what's going to happen in 10 years. You should be looking at what is happening right now in front of you for your user. How many clicks does he need to do before being able to do anything? Is the application simple to use? Easy to understand? Do you need to read the documentation? Or do you do crazy stuff? That's really something that is very important. So there's an interesting cultural gap between the visionary version and the attention to details that you need for what UX. So it's something that we see in a lot of applications. It's something where I think you can make a difference by looking at this point. Another part which is quite important for Linea is around security. And people tend to say, okay, the users, we don't care about security, so security is not important. And I do believe that it's actually wrong. I believe that actually they believe that we're going to build and make available secured systems, which is very different. And something that we see at Consensys, Consensys builds as well the MetaMask wallet. And what we saw in the past, if where people were losing their phones just after they joined the Web3 world, they were not coming back. They said, okay, I tried, I lost my money because of a scam, because of an accident, because I didn't pay attention to my private keys, whatever. Okay, I forget about it and I will never come back. While if people basically can stay more than 6 months, even if they have some accidents after this, they will still stay. They will understand their error and they will have discovered enough of this new world that will make them want to stay. So main point here, people are taking this security for granted, and if they see that it's not there and they're a little bit surprised, they would just go away. So again, when you're building an application, what are you building it for? I mean, what's the point? And you can, people that we have in our world is basically there's Web3 survivalists. They survived everything, all the scams and so on, and they don't trust anyone, and they can accept the risk because they know how to manage it. But if we want more users, we should be able to target people that they trust us, and they're right to trust us, and they don't want to take so many risks. So we should not betray this trust. And a good point on Linea, and basically for joining the ZK EVM world, is basically the ZK EVM, it's about being secured. Okay, there are many things under the hood that are making it secure. So I will give a few examples. The fact that we're a ZK EVM and not a ZK VM means that we're using a language that is already known. You're using low solidity, you're using all the tools that are already known, and you have many more people who can use these tools, and they understand how these tools are working. You can have audits, so it makes it just better. You have as well the fact that these tools are exactly the same for mainnet and for Linea, which means that if there's no situation like a bug in the compiler that will trigger specific attacks, or more precisely, you can have bugs in the compiler. It happened on mainnet 6 months ago for Viper, for example, but basically it's not new bugs. It's something that is quite production proven, instead of trying to build something totally new with so many new bugs. So that's really something that is important for us with security part, and that's why the ZK VM is making the things more secure by default right now. And to summarize this, basically, we do believe that the future is Ethereum. The main idea behind the ZK VM as well is we're not owning the specification. What we're implementing is specified by the Ethereum Foundation. We are not creating a single point of failure. Linea does not own something that will force you to stick to Linea forever and to believe in what a few people at Linea will be saying. We're basically saying, hey, we're implementing the EVM specification. The EVM specification is defined by the Ethereum Foundation. And we do believe that it's quite important in this decentralization not to create an implicit centralization. So that's something that is quite important. We do believe as well that this technology that we're building can eventually move to the layer one. Like what we have with multiple ZK VMs, this multi-prover thing, is something that replicates a lot what you have in the clients of the layer one today. The layer one clients, you have many consensus clients, many execution clients. There's no dependency to a single team. There's a specification written by the Ethereum Foundation, implemented by very different teams. It's exactly what we're gonna have here. And it means that this technology will be basically ready to be used by the layer one as they offer the same level of security, which is, again, no single dependency to a single team. And the fact that this technology can move to the layer one will create very likely a lot of new things that I don't even know myself. I expect it will happen in the next 5 to 10 years. But the main point is this technology is here to stay, and it's here to be generalized as much as possible. And that's my presentation. Thanks a lot for being here, and hope to see you soon on Linea.
Thanks, Nicolas. Thanks. Все, можна. Have a good day. Дякувати Господу Богу нашому Ісусу Христу, що були слайди, бо я питав про англійську, да, виявляється, треба було ще французьку знати. А коло мене сидить людина і каже, а про що це конфа взагалі? А я кажу, ти перший раз на крипто? Ну так, чувак підігнав білет. І я представляю, просто приходить на криптоконфу, і там, осе малюдгу, з тому все, ти кокс, і блядь, що, Linea. Ну, я почув знайоме слово, Metamask, так що все нормально. Ну, до речі, слайди є, і доволі такі класні слайди. Дякую тим, хто готував слайди. Вони, мабуть, знали, що... Добре, що ми не взяли перекладача, тому я не уявляю, скільки він би підвищив рейт свій за це. У нас наступна спікерка – це Емілі Лін, Developer Relations at Linea. Це людина, завдяки якій, в принципі, з боку Linea відбулася ця подія. І я ще хотів сказати, що завдяки кому відбулася ця подія, завдяки вам, тому що ваша активність, ваша діяльність, яку ми підсвічуємо, да, там на Заході, люди реально в шоці. Вони, коли Linea затвітила, що там в Києві буде івент, там в коментарях, якщо ви почитаєте, там в смислі в Києві, що їбануті, там же війна, ну що ви там будете робити? І люди дуже-дуже шоковані позитивно, що в нас така активність, що відбуваються якісь івенти, що дуже багато людей, які хочуть заробити XP-шки. Так, є у нас, да, Емілі Лін на зв'язку? Супер, да. Ваші оплески, Емілі Лін, Developer Relations Linea. Hello, Emily. You can speak, I hope.
Oh, can you hear me? Yes.
Yes,
We're
yes,
good?
everything is okay. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Wow, amazing. This is such a big crowd. Thank you guys so much. Thank you, Incrypted, for hosting such an amazing event. I know Nicolas got into a lot, so I'm kind of going to give what the TLDR, try to talk about everything in 10 minutes here. The tech side of Linea, so I guess diving into more of an explanation of what Nicolas was talking about specifically, where we are sitting at the ecosystem side. I think the real reason like people are interested in Linea, what kind of builders we're looking for if you're trying to get involved. And then also just a brief overview about why we even threw this event. Like, why do this randomly? Why is Dencun important? So hopefully we can get through all of this in 10 minutes, but we'll see. Right, so TLDR, right? Linea is a EVM equivalent ZK rollup bootstrap by Consensys. So when I talk about Linea to people, their question is like, okay, what makes it different? Tell me a little bit more, right? So there's two ways to look at it. There's the tech side, right? So within the rollup landscape, you guys are familiar with probably like Optimism, Arbitrum Base. These are optimistic rollups, right? What makes this different? So with L2s, they have to take that data that they're like, I guess all your transaction data and post it back to Ethereum. But how do you know that's true? Well, with optimistic rollups, they just assume it's true. And they wait 7 days for people, basically a community, could come to a consensus that like, oh yeah, this is correct. However, you know, you guys might be like, oh, wait, when I bridge from like Optimism to Ethereum, like I don't notice the 7 days at all. And that's because you have trusted bridges as a workaround. So they'll have like liquidity pools that will immediately release funds to you. But obviously bridges are a place to get hacked. It's not the best place. So in that case, right, optimistic rollups came around because they're much easier to implement than ZK rollups. But this is kind of where they sat. And, you know, we didn't think ZK rollups were going to be super possible, but actually they are, right? And so ZK rollups came and said, hey, optimistic rollups are not that secure, right? How do we make this more secure? So let's actually prove using something called a validity proof. So let's prove this using math. And what that means is when we post the data back to Ethereum, so that's data availability, right? We post a math proving it's true. So we're not relying on external parties or actors. We have a verifier on chain that will say like, hey, the transaction data is correct. I do want to say this because I get this question a lot. ZK rollups are not privacy solutions, right? So I'll dive into this a little later when we talk about gas and why Dencun is important. But basically, when you put that information, like the proof back on chain, you want the proof to be as small as possible because storage costs money, right? So then when that comes to what kind of mathematical proofs we choose ZK proofs because they show as little information as possible. Examples of this include Linea, ZK Sync, Polygon, ZKVM, Scroll, Starknet. right? And so the question again is like, okay, now we have all these ZK rollups. Like, what's the difference between all of them, right? How do we dive into it? And so this is kind of when we talk about the way things are actually implemented, right? So as you can see on the left side, Starknet is the most different, all the way up until Linea and Scroll. We're the closest to Ethereum, right? What this means is at that bytecode level, like bytecode and runtime level, is kind of what determines how well your tools transfer over. So I don't know how many of you guys are developers, but if you're not, basically to build a project, a smart contract, right, you need to write in Solidity. And you use something called like Hardhat or Foundry to be able to compile that code. With Starknet and ZK Sync, you have to add in and maintain plugins because they don't natively understand them, because it's not what they expect, because they were made to understand EVM, but not like a Cairo VM, for example. But with Linea and Scroll, that is not the case at all, right? And so the argument of like why we would choose one over the other is, the more compatible you are, I think there's a few things, right? Like it's easier to maintain parity with the EVM. It is also like you leverage the network effects of Ethereum. You also, what's the other piece? Like, and then this is also like a security thing. I actually like that slide about like users don't take security for granted. It's another one of those things. So I don't know if you guys lost money in the Curve Finance hack, but Curve Finance got hacked for like some obscene amount of money. And why? Their smart contract code was fine. But actually what happened was there was a bug in Viper itself. So it was a compiler bug, right? So in the same way, if you take that model, right, when things are different from the EVM for a smart contract auditor, they have to think about that, right? Because now there's unexpected behavior. Even though your smart contract code, like the execution of it looks totally fine, the actual compilation of it might be different, right? So when we talk about like Linea, I think the things that I think are really cool from the tech side, right, is we're a ZK rollup secured by math. We are moving towards type 2, so that's the bytecode equivalence part. Leverage the network effects of Ethereum ecosystem. Also great because if you hate Linea, totally okay. You can exit super easily because your dApps will transfer. Viper. And then this is also another security thing people don't think about at all. I don't know how many of you guys run nodes on Ethereum, but like multi-client is super important for node running, right? Linea is the only L2 that can actually support multiple clients. So we do Geth like every other L2, but we can also support Bezu and Nethermind and things like that. And it's because of the way we like do gas, but other kind of security considerations, which are cool. But to move forward, right, like I said, I say all this stuff, it's so exciting. Most people don't care about tech. Why? Because they want to do something that is usable and you have something that you can actually transact on. Like I have something to do. Right. And so when it comes to builders coming onto Consensys, the answer they like when I ask them, like, why are you interested in Linea? Right. And the primary two things, right, is like longevity. Like we are a chain that will last forever, right? We have the full weight of Consensys behind us. And then also just like eyeballs and ecosystem support, right? So from the MetaMask perspective, we have it as a default network on your like MetaMask UI. Which is like really great for a seamless UX for users. And you can just imagine or like ideate that, moving forward, there will be synergies between the MetaMask and Linea team, right? I think the other piece that I talk about right here as well is like L2s and dApp developers, the relationship, right? So dApp developers talk to us directly. It's very easy to have that feedback of like, I'm building on Linea, there's a bug. And then Linea goes, okay, well, let's like release, okay, there's no bugs on Linea, but like you get my idea, like, oh, I'm upset with this or like whatever. And then like we'll do like a whole kind of feedback loop. But when it comes to dApp developers being successful, like Linea just needs to work. They just need to be fast. We just need to be cheap. What actually matters now, right? And it's talking about like end users. Like people need to use your dApp and spend money so that you make money and survive, right? And part of that, right, is you want that feedback loop between you as a dApp developer and the end users, right? I want that feedback of like the end users being like, your onboarding process sucks. I hate this. You have this bug. It's not working. And then that is like that next cycle between the dApp developer and the end user, right? So I think Linea or just L2s in general, right, have like a really cool opportunity to do a few things, right? We have contacts with the entire DApp ecosystem from developer tools, DeFi, whatever. And that gives us an opportunity to make like connections between existing DApp builders. In the same way, like, you know, just to be fully transparent, Linea is running voyages, right? A lot of interest and speculation comes through that. And I think the main kind of value add there really is being able to capture that attention and direct it back towards the dApp builders that are on Linea, right? So like Web3 on-chain use cases succeed when like they're actually usable. And the only way you can make sure that they're usable is that you get users to use them. A cool thing that I think is actually like curating a Web3 journey. And I say this anecdote, I was just at ETH Denver and there was an old grandma who was like, my grandson told me to use Linea Park, which is happening right now. It's like basically a journey through testing out different gaming dApps on Linea. And she was like, it's so interesting because otherwise, you know, a new entrant into the system who says, I want to explore DeFi in Web3, I want to explore gaming in Web3. Where do you start? There's so much noise, right? But like L2s in general, and we've all kind of taken this model, are able to suggest and say like, hey, you know, if you want to start your DeFi journey, number one, start off by downloading a MetaMask security snap. So we'll have like the MetaMask guy talk tomorrow, or sorry, later today. But yeah, number one, like enter the space, be safe, leverage like transaction insights, right? And now that you have an extra layer of security through a MetaMask security snap, now you can dive in, explore Web3, see all the things that you want to see, make money, grift, whatever, you know, like all the crazy and fun things that happen on chain. And so, yeah, this is kind of like all the really cool things about Linea. I think the main thing, and this is really one slide, but like when I talk to developers or builders and things like that, what they're like, what does Linea want? There's a few things, right? Like DeFi is probably number one. You need liquidity on the chain for it to make it work, right? So like a chain with not a lot of liquidity is not going to move smoothly. So DeFi dApps, novel use cases, super important. I think the next thing that we're thinking about really is like from a BD perspective, you know, stickiness is important, right? Like how do you onboard a user and make them have fun, get stuck, have a community, right? And typically, like I think the resolution consensus is like gaming and social are definitely that kind of next step, right? And then separately, also like this is something that we have been thinking about developing is definitely growing an NFT community. I will be transparent. There's not like a huge NFT kind of presence on Linea, and so now we're definitely reaching out to creators and finding different ways to really engage that side of Web3. That's actually why I got into Web3 because NFTs are really cool. But separately, like how can you guys get helped as builders? So if you are currently building something right now, we have something called Leia. So Linea Ecosystem Investment Alliance. Essentially, we have like a group of VCs who are interested in like, I guess, applying or funding Linea projects specifically. I'm actually starting something called monthly mini hacks. So these are like really fun kind of small things where you don't have to start from scratch. You can bring in an existing project and then every month we'll take in submissions and like award a small grant prize. But I think it's a really good way to number one, build in public and then demonstrate that you're actually doing something with your project. And to that effect, like joiners will be trickled down into our Linea Builders Club. Again, focus mostly on teams or individual developers that are continuously iterating. But it'll be like a whole kind of thing with our marketing team and like other people from BD just sitting there around as mentorship. And otherwise, like if you do have a project right now that you want to get onboarded onto Linea, please like DM me on Twitter. I'm underscore EMJLIN. That will be in a different slide. But yeah, sorry, I think I'm probably over 10 minutes. So I'm going to talk super fast now. So we're going to get into why Dencun and why we're doing this, right? So first off, you know, how does gas happen, right? So gas is actually when that proof and all that data is posted back to Ethereum. All of our costs kind of come from Ethereum being expensive. So when ETH is pumping, AKA right now, like I always wanted to be a bull run, right? You'll expect the same from any L2. So how do we fix this problem, right? And this is where EIP 4844 comes in. So Dencun, so the Cancun Deneb upgrade for Ethereum is focused, one of the key pieces is scalability, right? So let's dive into that. EIP 4844 crash course. Ethereum needs to scale. How are we doing this? It's something called sharding. Basically, sharding is like a common concept in databases where you can run transactions in parallel, right? Reducing congestion, lowering gas fees. It's hard to achieve. It's called Dink sharding. But proto-Dink sharding is going to be that intermediary step, setting up the scaffolding. So what does that look like specifically? So like I said, we have to post that data back onto Ethereum. And why do we post that data? It's specifically to verify truthfulness, right? But once we verify the truthfulness, like more transactions are always coming through. You don't need to hold that forever because at some point that's just not going to be relevant anymore. You have to verify a new state of truthfulness and then a new state of truthfulness and a new state, and so holding around all that data is expensive and unnecessary. What proto-Dink sharding introduces actually a separate thing called blob carrying transactions. So instead of data stored on the node in call data, which lives around forever, there's a separate type of data called blob. And this is ephemeral, so it'll be deleted. They don't compete for block space, so you aren't going to be like, I guess it's cheaper in that sense, right? And the other cool thing is they have their own fee markets, right? So that means even if L1 is like fluctuating up and down and going crazy and whatever, the only thing that you're concerned with is the fee market of the blobs themselves, right? And also like removing this data makes storage costs lower for all Ethereum nodes. So, I mean, that's kind of everything that I wanted to talk about. We're throwing this event simply to celebrate that prices are going to go down for everybody. Whatever L2 that you're transacting on, if you're a blast person, totally fine. Like I think Nicolas mentioned, like multi-prover, it's important to have multiple L2s. It's important for all of us to benefit from Dencun. Dencun is happening March 13th. And so that's the Ethereum upgrade. You probably won't see Linea be able to so Ethereum has to upgrade and then afterwards Linea follows, right? So you can expect that probably like end of March-ish. But yeah, thanks so much for talking, guys, and listening to me ramble. If you want to follow Linea on Twitter, it's Linea Build. Consensys is Consensys. That's my Twitter right there. But yeah, you can find everything about Linea on linea.build. If you are interested in getting involved in a voyage, which I think Andrew will be talking about after this Linea Park is happening, you can read more about it on our blog. But yeah, I don't know how much time I took, but hopefully I didn't take more than I was supposed to.
Thanks, Emily. Давайте овацію зробимо Емілі. Ву-ху! Дякую, що переклала попередню презентацію. Отаку англійську я вчив, до речі. Це я зрозумів. Дякувати Богу нашому Ісусу Христу, що в Україні є амбасадор, і звати його Андрій. І він говорить не французькою. Ти є, Андрій? Десь, мабуть, є. О, ось. Ваші оплески Андрій Hanenko, амбасадор Linea.
Да. Окей. Як цим користуватись? Угу. Назад. Понял. Так, всім привіт. Розповім трошки про себе. Я, так як і більшість з вас, звичайний криптанс-ком'юніті, який приймає участь в різних активностях і так далі. Також ми ще з командою пілимо власну платформу по ончейн-аналітиці, аналізуємо різні протоколи, будуємо лідерборди на базі юзерської ончейн-активності і так далі. Більш згодом розповім, як ви можете використовувати нашу платформу разом з різними компаніями, такі як Linea. Взагалі, з самого початку мені команда запропонувала виступити з темою «How to build on Linea», але якщо б я знав, я б з задоволенням розповів би вам про це. Тому я вирішив пройтись по основним моментам в ком'юніті, оскільки у більшості таке враження про компанію Linea, що типу Proof of Humanity, нові LXP-шки, щось потрібно, як завжди, спалювати комісію. І хочу, щоб у вас після мого спіча все було розкладено по поличкам, ви розуміли, що взагалі проходить, що вам для цього потрібно і так далі. Так, розпочнемо з невеликої статистики. Взагалі було проведено 2 кампанії вже, і наразі активна Linea Park. Почалось все з Linea Watch Testnet, в результаті якої було розподілено близько 350 тисяч тих самих Linea Watch NFT, про які ви могли чути. Ну, саме тоді їх можна було отримати, зараз ви їх тільки можете купити типу, на маркеті і все. Наступним етапом стала кампанія в мейннеті Linea Watch DeFi. Саме тоді були запроваджені ті самі LXP-шки, Proof of Humanity і так далі, ці всі штучки, які ми всі любимо. І наразі відбувається кампанія під назвою Linea Park. Вона націлена вже на геймінг, на NFT і так далі. Коротше, більш згодом я розповім про все це детально і з подробицями. Для початку давайте зрозуміємо, що таке LXP. Коротше, це токен, який надсилається вам бачами за вашу активність і за те, що ви приймаєте участь в кампаніях від Linea. Щоб його отримати, вам обов'язково потрібно пройти Proof of Humanity. Він взагалі не передаваємий, тобто ви нічого з ним зробити не можете, ви просто його отримаєте на гаманець, ні передати, ні продати, нічого ви з ним не можете зробити. В ході партнерських компаній і компанія Linea Watch DeFi було розподілено вже близько 700 мільйонів токену LXP-шок на 505 тисяч гаманців. Але варто розуміти, що зараз проходить Linea Park, і в результаті якої ще буде мінімум розподілено, я думаю, 500 мільярда токенів, тому типу, потрібно зразу розуміти, що total supply буде більше ярду точно. Окей, що взагалі таке Linea Watch Testnet і як він проходив? Це саме перший такий великий квест, який відбувся на Galaxy. І щоб в ньому прийняти участь, потрібно було мати просто ApeGuru, Twitter і клікати на Galaxy. І саме в той час Linea зіштовхнулася з проблемою ботів, оскільки все робити було реально дуже ізі. І всі швидко підключили свої ботовозки, автоматизували всі ці процеси. І на деяких тасках було навіть близько 5 мільйонів учасників. І саме тоді тимчасовим рішенням послугувала таск Proof of Citizen. Він включав в себе 3 таски на вибір. Вам потрібно було або отримати паспорт Gitcoin Score більше 20, або мати паспорт Galaxy, або мати паспорт гільдії. Тим самим вдалося скоротити кількість учасників до 600 тисяч. Але, якщо я не помиляюсь, Linea ще проводила додаткову перевірку власну на рахунок IP, і додаткові перевірки. І тим самим нагороду в результаті отримало з тих самих 5 мільйонів гаманців, які приймали участь, всього 352 тисячі. Вони розподілені на 4 класи, і яку ви NFT-шку отримаєте, залежало від того, скільки ви отримали поінтів на Galaxy. Наступним етапом стала Linea Watch DeFi. Це вже кампанія, яка відбувалась в мейннеті. Як і зрозуміло з назви, вона була націлена на DeFi. Вам потрібно було свапати, кидати токени фармінг, використовувати децентралізовані фьючерси і так далі. Всього було 6 тижнів, з яких там 10 основних та 24 бонусних завдання. І ви могли максимум на гаманець отримати 2200 тих самих LXP-шок. І саме тоді, під час цієї кампанії, Linea запровадила таке рішення, як Proof of Humanity, яке вона використовує по сьогодні. І, типу, потрібно зрозуміти, що будь-які реварди, щоб отримати LXP-шки, вам обов'язково потрібно мати Proof of Humanity. Якщо у вас цього немає, навіть якщо ви там проводили активність на платформах, і вам там або Інтеракт, або Layer 3 пише, що ви претендуєте на винагороди, ви їх не отримаєте, якщо не пройшли цей квест. Що таке взагалі цей Proof of Humanity в народі POH? POH – це група тасків, яка складається з різних протоколів атестації. Вона, коротше, складається з групи А. Це близькі партнери Linea, і отримати атестацію в групі А досить складно, тому вам потрібно вибрати один із протоколів на вибір і в них отримати, власне, цю атестацію. Вона проходить в різних видах. Коротше, ви можете самі зайти, подивитись, потикати, що вам краще зробити, і легше, і простіше. Але крутий фішка, якщо ви приймали участь в Linea Voyage Testnet, і ви маєте будь-яку NFT, ну саме з цих 4 класів, тобто ви пройшли Proof of Citizen і отримали NFT-шку, то у вас група А автоматично закривається і вам не потрібно проходити цю таску. Також є група Б. Вона вже складається з таких менш довірених протоколів в плані не того, що їх там можуть хакнути чи ще щось, а в плані менш довірених, що там атестацію отримати набагато простіше. Ви типу можете просто заапрувити свою почту або підв'язати Twitter, нажати пару кнопочок, підписати транзакцію, і вам зарахується атестація. Тому саме з групи Б потрібно вам виконати 2 таски 2 протоколів. Давайте підсумуємо трошки. Ще раз. 3 кампанії. Наразі ви можете прийняти участь в Linea Park. Було розподілено 600 мільйонів LXP-шок. Щоб отримувати LXP-шку, вам обов'язково потрібно пройти Proof of Humanity. Типу, без нього нікуди. Ось трошки побічу нашу платформу. Типу, ми зібрали саму цікаву аналітику, яку вам потрібно... Ну, це демка, ну таке. Аналітику, яку вам потрібно знати, приймаючи участь в таких кампаніях. Із цікавого ми додали те, що по Linea ви можете подивитись розподілення токенів LXP і типу розуміти, в якої кількості юзерів, які токени LXP і куди вам потрібно орієнтуватись. Наразі ми знаходимося в етапі закритої бети, і тому ви взагалі ніхто не міг нічого чути про Layer Hapi, я перший раз взагалі розповідаю про нього публічно. Але дуже скоро ми запускаємо паблік бету, і кому цікаво потестити свої гаманці з багами, з неправильною інфою, можете переходити до телеграм-канальчику, ми туди будемо кидати актуальну інфу і закинемо вам доступ, і ви зможете потестити. Також ми із цікаво розробили власний лідерборд, який там ґрунтується на вашій ончейн активності в Linea, на тому, скільки у вас LXP-шок, чи володієте ви NFT-шками Linea Voyage і так далі. Ну і, до речі, ми працюємо не тільки по Linea, у нас дуже багато цікавих протоколів, які ви також можете побачити цікаву інфу. Окей, рекламна пауза закінчилась. Linea Park. Це кампанія, яка відбувається наразі. Зараз іде 3-й тиждень. В ній приймає в середньому участь 500 тисяч гаманців. І в середньому ви можете заробити по 200 LXP на тиждень, виконуючи різні таски. Всього буде 6 тижнів, 54 квести. Якщо ви ще не починали приймати тут участь, то таски з минулих тижнів для вас вже будуть більша частина закрита, оскільки там типу є мейн-таски, які ви можете хоч і зараз пройти. Але більшість LXP-шок давалась за бонусні таски, і вони зараз закриті, тому потрібно чекати 6-го тижня. І на 6-му тижні відкриють доступ до цих всіх бонусних тасків. Якщо ви там щось пропустили, ви можете ізі доробити і залутати LXP-шки. Також важливим моментом є партнерські програми. Вони відбуваються час від часу, просто типу на рандом, коли Linea вирішує те, що їм варто запартнерити з якимось протоколом або проєктом. Ви можете перейти на сайт Linea Build Activations і переглядати, виставити фільтри і переглядати, які актуальні активності є, в чому можна прийняти участь і як підлудити LXP-шок. На цьому в цілому все, по тому, що проходить в ком'юніті. Але хотів би додати такий ключовий момент в тому, що взагалі для чого це все потрібно, навіщо ці LXP-шки, типу, чому не можна йти по шляху такому, як інші мережі. Сама суть в тому, що в будь-якому разі Linea, типу, крутий L2 Network, який би знайдеться багато людей, які б захотіли просто так пожигати на ньому комісії. Linea зробили реально круту річ в цьому плані з квестами і так далі, де вона вас водить за ручку по протоколам і каже вам, що робити. Тому що це дозволяє новим білдерам, оскільки, ну, типу, якщо б не було б квестів, ви б так і прийшли б, зайшли б на Юнік, посвапали, ваниш і так далі, всякі трастові великі протоколи, ви б там понабивали свої транзакції і пішли. А Linea перенаправляє трафік до нових протоколів, до нових білдерів, які можуть, вони мають змогу попрацювати з трафіком, отримати навіть якесь ревеню і розвивати свій продукт далі. До прикладу, взяти той ж самий Proof of Humanity, там більшість протоколів заточені чисто під Linea, і саме Linea, Proof of Humanity, LXP-шки дали змогу їм розвиватися, білдити свої продукти, отримати ревеню. Все. На цьому все. Я ще буду нетворкати. Можливо, хтось білдить власні протоколи, комусь цікаво дізнатись контакти Linea, щось попітчити. З радістю вам допоможу, відповім. Да.
Дякую. Це нормально було. Дякую. Та? Лежи. Хто зрозумів, що таке Linea з першого разу, ви кіборги просто, помножені на вічність. Хто з другого разу вже молодці. Андрюха, красавчик. Йдемо далі. У нас наступний спікер, людина, яка допомагала Linea, мабуть, цих сибілів всіх фігачити. Тому запрошую на сцену містер.
Андрій, мабуть, мене і не знає, ну нічого. Всі такі сидять і думають, блядь, так насиплять чи ні? Що просто, що всі кажуть, там LXP-шки якась, чи типа насипають чи ні. Я познайомився з Лінеєю, коли там вони ще були такі, ходили в шльопанцях. Да, і там не було ще мейннета, був тестнет, він падав 2 рази в хвилину. Нічого не працювало, все, і ми таки приходимо і дивимося. Але чим мені сподобалась Лінея, і взагалі там ребята, один на Емінема похоже, Емілі і ще. В общем, це роз'єб, які менеджери. Ну, просто роз'єб. Дівчинка Емілі, от ви побачили, як вона спілкується так 24/7. Зі всіма, вона просто, так, це не просто радіо, вона шилить, як боженька. І ми, прийшли на дзвінок з ними, поспілкувалися, такі, думаємо, треба залітати. Тому що, ви всі прекрасно знаєте, що Linea – це Consensys, це MetaMask, це Infura і новий продукт їх Verax. Verax взагалі теж роз'єб. Не можна такі слова говорити, я знаю, Вань, вибач. В общем, це окрема історія. В общем, ми приходимо туди, цей продукт, і якраз запускається, вони кажуть, у нас тільки будуть запускатися квести на Galaxy. Galaxy тоді така суперпопулярна платформа, ще там запустилось буквально, я не пам'ятаю, скільки проєктів до того запустилось до Лінії. Проєктів, мабуть, 5-7. Андрій? Нема? Не можеш. Скільки? Не пам'ятаєш, скільки там? Там, в общем, запустилось на Galaxy тільки 4, 5, 7 проєктів, і, всі такі, все, це нова, вообще, це от все буде тільки на Galaxy. І індуси теж так думали, що тепер, все буде тільки на Galaxy. І, вони запускають квести, і там, просто, сервера не тримають, нічого не робить, все ламається, тестнет, там сидять, Емінем сидить сивий такий вже, думає, капець, просто дрова, що робить? І ми тоді так, сідаємо з ними, у нас проєкт Scamfari, може хто знає, може ні, неважно. Hapi, Scamfari, Вань, неважно. Суть заключається в тому, що ми можемо так бистренько підрізати сибілів. Хоп, і все, і нема. Ми допрацьовуємо це все, вставляємо туди лінію, хоп, і видаємо квест. Видаємо квест, де людина мала зробити декілька транзакцій. Ми по цим транзакціям одразу дивились, що вона там має літеру нарисувати, там, все зробити. Ми, хоп, все пробиваємо про людину і можемо сказати, сибіл, не сибіл. І красавчики, хоп, 6 мільйонів заходить, 360 тисяч у нас виходить. Я не пам'ятаю, 360, цифри я вже не пам'ятаю. 360 тисяч. Ми такі відправляємо лінії дані, кажемо, 360 тисяч. Вони кажуть, блядь, вибирай цифру, нахуй. 360 не підходить, треба, щоб більше. Я кажу, блядь, все одно 360, ну що ти зробиш? Там натягуй, не натягуй, як труси. Ні, 360. Каже, давай, ми, ти відправляєш, ми не бачили, і все. Я говорю, я відправив, ви не бачили. Все, проходить, 360 тисяч. Відправляю, скільки пройшло. Каже, ми зато вам таку NFT-шку видадимо, таку тільки у вас, у Елтона Джона і у нас там. Там скільки, я не пам'ятаю, самих модних, 10, 20, 50, 100. Щось там. І така у мене, є сама модна, якщо треба, комусь продам. Дві самі модні. Одну Incrypted, ні, не дам. Ну, в общем, є ці самі модні NFT-шки. Запустили ми цей квест, люди проходили далі і думають, типа, а вдруг, типа, Scamfari нас бали. Типа, давайте перепровіримо. І вони додають, останній квест був, типа, провірити своє identity, для того, щоб всіх. Хоп, 360. Вони, сука, ну, типа, совпали цифри і, ну, типа, скажімо, 6 мільйонів. Нормально, цифра велика, хорошо. Так, 6 мільйонів, все, ну, типа, все класно. Мережа вже тоді виходила в мейннет. Забув, як там проходило, бо я десь п'яний був, може. Ну, неважно. Типа, мейннет. Я далі не пам'ятаю. Запускається мейннет. Все хорошо в мейннеті, тільки типа, ціна транзакції, як в ефірі. Всі, типа, для чого це L2? Ну, типа, ціна як в ефірі, а може ще й більше. А там, типа, прикол був, тому що коли, типа, всі люди такі, безплатні транзакції, тестнет, ми там все робимо, типа, тільки запускається, де треба платити, і все, 6 мільйонів нема, нікого. 2000 людей, типа, і все. А ще якщо треба ліквідність перегнати з одної сеті в другу, то взагалі нікого нема. В общем, нікого нема, транзакцій нема, а якщо хто знає, як L2 взагалі працює, хтось знає, як L2 працює? Ну, типа, да, приїхали. Давайте так, дуже просто, так, от, типа, L2 – це, типа, великий такий обман, його не існує. Типа, є ефір і є ця мережа. Дуже просто, типа, хто технарі, ні, це просто дуже просто. От є ефір і є L2. І в тебе там типа, декілька блоків пройшло, наприклад, ти типа, дуже швидко генеруєш блоки, там 100 згенерував, хеш взяв суму і записав в основний блокчейн. Типа, і це значить, що в ефірі лежить сума, що, ну, типа, якщо там щось зміниться, то тут буде знати, що воно змінилося. І типа, все чесно, все. Типа, це L2. Да. Ну, в общем, L2 працює, а із-за того, що записувати треба часто, ну, типу, вони там поставили, типу, там, записуємо кожні 10 блоків в ефірі, а в ефірі там газ, а у тебе тут транзакцій нема, типу, взагалі нічого не ходить, а записувати все рівно треба. І знаєте, як зробили? Не типу, щоб самим доплачувати за це, а типу, от коли той один прийде через 100 блоків, от той заплатить за це все. І типу, ти там, хоп, транзакція, а вона там $200, ти, типу, ну, і все, нема. Не, типу, і платиш. Ну, я так утрірую, але було дорого. Знаю, типу, хто робив, це все знає. Запускається, працюється. Чим поганий Galaxy, типу, всі показники одразу впали. Ну, типу, там активність на Твіттері була, там всі ретвітили, все робили, а потім хоп, 6 тисяч переглядів на 1 тисячу мільйонів підписників. Вань, як на Incrypted в худші времена.
Не нагадуй.
Ну, типа, нікому не треба. Да. Ну, типа, прикольно, но типа дроп роздавати, наверное. Ну, планували, не планували. Ну, в общем, роздали NFT-шки. Всім, типа, поучаствували в красавці. NFT-шки є, і всі ходять, типа, модні. Ну, типа, NFT є. Можна продати, піти на ринок. Ну, все, є. Ми далі починаємо працювати з Лінією. Лінія, ну, типа, розвивалась тоді дуже швидко, типа, дуже прикольно. Ну, прям прикольно. Типу, ми дивилися, як працює біздев, і ми думали, ну, зараз, типу, bull market, токен і просто капець. Ну, типу, ти вже багатий, я вже такий, ну, типу, всі гроші мої будуть, типу, от. Ну, ні, другий квест, типу, хто не устав, типу, мені кажуть, типу, там, і там, ну, як Лінія вміє, Лінія це просто, ну, це, типу, ти должен бути боженька біздева, для того, що ти кажеш, ти не приходиш, типу, і не кажеш, що у вас там буде квест, і вам треба щось зробити, там, транзакції послати, на Incrypted, типу, стаття, типу, все. Ні, 12 неділь. 12 неділь, і, типу, ти туди докидуєш кучу всяких других протоколів, які нікому не треба. Ну, типу, от ти береш, типу, от ви там пішли, кстати, номісом не користуйтесь. По-перше, це мої конкуренти, по-друге, це русня. У кого на номісі в собі намінтили вже? І не одна рука є, да, один чесний і всі остальні такі, типу. Похер, ще одинаково. Вся херня. А ми тому не пішли туди. Ну, тому що ми не захотіли, типу, ну... Є на те одна причина, я потім її розкажу в самому кінці. В общем, ідуть верифікація, це і проблема Лінії заключається... Я ж не з команди, я можу розказувати все, що хочу. Проблема лінії заключається, типу, прикольно, коли ти типу, відправляєш людей на інші протоколи для того, щоб вони типу, тестували ці протоколи, щось там робили, все остальне. А людині взагалі просто, просто він сходив, типу, зробив те, що йому сказали на Incrypted в табличці, і він навіть не пам'ятає, що він робив улітку. Ну, типу, це... І у нас така веб-3 світ такий, це... Ну, така, типу, ми робимо вигляд, що ми робимо хороші продукти, типу, які всім треба, а ви робите вигляд, що ви типу, їх типу, користуєтесь, а за це все нам повинні роздати токени, щоб ми типу, так і далі робили вигляд. І якщо лінія не насипить, то біда буде, ну чесно. Бо складно, да. Ну, він не... Типу, всі хочуть, зараз я закінчу, типу, спеціально перерив не зробили, щоб ви це питання забули, але ви все рівно підете спитати, чи насипить, а він не знає. Ладно, шутка. Жарт. Ну, так, в мене 6 хвилин. Я розкажу, чого ми не пішли туди і куди ми пішли в іншу сторону. На лінії запустили такий продукт, верніше як, Consensys запустив такий продукт, який називається Verax. Для того, щоб, ну, коли всі зрозуміли, що люди мудаки і вони мультіачать, і в кожного по 100-500 телефонів, на яких вони це все роблять, це, типу, не прикол взагалі. Ну, і кожен раз питатися там з біткоін-паспортом, з чим всім ось цим робити, воно все розрізнене, куча цих протоколів, які користуються своєю базою даних, взагалі нічого зрозуміти не можна. То, типу, реально оцінити людину не можна. І тоді в Consensys вирішили запустити такий протокол, який називається Verax. Це як така, типу, грубо кажучи, всім оцим продуктам, які проводять верифікацію, їм сказали, типу, переставайте страдати херньою і складайте свої дані в спеціальній структурі в одну базу даних, в один смарт-контракт. І для того, щоб коли мені, як протоколу чи як продукту, треба було вияснити, чи ця людина мені підходить, чи не підходить, чи ще що, я просто іду дивлюся в Verax Explorer. В Verax Explorer написали ми. Хапай, от чим ми займалися. Там, якщо зайдете, типа, Verax, типа, /Explorer і це все дані, там внизу така буде маленька плашка, 2х2 пікселя, наш логотип. І, типа, видно, да. Ну, вони казали, зробіть більше, а ми скромні. А скромність – це що? Це путь безславію і... Як безславію...
Вони взагалі не дозволили, ви просто додали логотип.
Ні, да? Типу, сказали, кажуть, ні, Юр, типу, давай як би великий логотип. А я типу, такий скромний, та ні, ми зробимо маленький. Вони кажуть, це путь безславію і бідності. От так. Зробили, додали, і типу, зараз і всім протоколам своїм, типу, номісу, і всім сказали, типу, переставайте клік, і тогл, всім, хто займається KYC, це всім сказали, типу, чуваки, переставайте страдати херньою і складуйте всі свої дані от в цей Verax. Чи Verax насипе, я теж не знаю, але продукт прикольний. Потім Verax зробив DAO, для того, щоб, ну, типу, прикольно буде, якщо не тільки на лінії будуть лежати всі дані цих користувачів, прикольно буде, якщо вони будуть лежати по всім мережам, тоді всі протоколи зможуть користуватися цими даними, і ми перестанемо страдати херньою. Не роблячи це декілька разів. Вони це все зробили, і типа DAO, в мене там, по-моєму, 3 голоси за 8, DAO голосує для того, щоб додавати Verax в кожну мережу. Тому продукт такий, він досить перспективний. Ми зараз це робимо, складаємо, і, мабуть, я не знаю як, але якщо б ви от, типу, там, якось взаємодієте, ну, є яка в мене впевненість така, що вони, скоріше за всього, для ідентифікації оцих користувачів, ботів, і все будуть використовувати Verax. Ну, є в мене така от. Ніхто не знає, ну, типу, це вам просто от, типу, на майбутнє. Типу, от, подивіться, як в Verax складені ваші дані. Це вам, мабуть, знадобиться. О, я вклався в час, типу, все, якщо є питання, да.
Ваші оплески, містере. Зізнайтесь, що ви ходите на мітапи, щоб містера послухати, так? Да? До речі, да, можна поаплодувати. Така думка прийшла. Google, щоб зрозуміти, що ви не робот, питає, де тут велосипеди, і Linea, давай POH, давай Proof of Humanity, давай нефтішку замінь 12 тижнів. Ну, коротше, зато Google грошей не роздає. Linea теж, да? Не роздає. 12 тижнів, да? А потім подивимось. Ні, візьміть мікрофон, так нічого не чути. Мікрофон.
До речі, якщо ви розробник, типу, у вас там є така штука, Verax можна написати в команду. Я думаю, можна Дрюхі написати, І він може пробити, щоб транзакції з вашим протоколом були безкоштовні. Там є така типа штука, і це дуже прикольно. Типа, якщо ви, наприклад, ви запустились, такий стартап, і такі, користувачі будуть платити там газу по $5 за транзу. Не взлетить. Ви приходите до них, кажете, ви можете нам $5000 в місяць покривати газ, газ фі. Вони кажуть, окей. І все, ви запускаєте продукт, для вас це буде, дуже прикольно. Все.
Дякую. Шили, як може. Так, у нас є наступний спікер в Zoom. Все, супер. Наступний спікер – це фаундер CTO Lynex. Вони в нас були на піч-сесії другій. Пічили свій проєкт. І зараз ApeGuru, його так звуть, мабуть, буде на зв'язку. Ваші оплески, будь ласка.
Hey, how's everyone? Thanks for having me. I'm Ignacio, as I've been introduced, the founder of Lynex and ApeBond, a liquidity marketplace on the Linea ecosystem. And today I'm going to talk about a new token standard that was co-created by myself and my colleagues at ApeBond to represent token locks, which can potentially facilitate OTC deals and secondary marketplaces for locked tokens. I'm not sure if my presentation or screen should be shared here, but I can share my screen if that's an option. Okay, so what's ERC 5725 and why do we think it's important? Basically, it's a standard that has been recently approved by the Ethereum Foundation. It's an official EAP that aims to describe how tokens are locked and distributed over time. It basically represents token locks as NFTs and enables anyone to transfer them. But before we get into the details, before we get into why this is important, it's important. I think it's also important to understand why we need it. I think that anyone who has been in this industry long enough knows that locking and releasing tokens over time, it's actually a pretty massive use case. I mean, I'm not saying it's the most fancy use case. I'm not saying it's the most important use case, but if you've been here long enough, you know that since the inception of ERC20, since we have tokens, there is some form or shape or vesting available on the market. Like, I mean, if you ever participated in an ACO, you ever participating on a private investment, or even in a launchpad, there is always vesting, there is always token locks, there is always some form of token distribution. And this also goes when you are doing like some potential OTC deal. Generally, you don't necessarily release all the tokens at once. There is some locking. We have years and years of token locking implementations. Nevertheless, there has never existed a standard over 6-7 years of this type of use case, and everyone has their own flavor. So we have launchpads with their own flavor, we have protocols with their own flavor, token lockers with their own flavor. Everyone does their own implementation. Everyone describes token locking in a different way. And at the end of the day, if you are locking tokens and releasing tokens over time, there are like some pretty basic stuff that is always the same. I mean, you have a start time, you have an end time, you have a curve, and you have a function to claim the tokens. It's pretty much the same. We don't need 16 different protocols doing this differently. We don't need so many people actually implementing this and reinventing the wheel. Like it's, in my opinion, it's a proved use case that has wide adoption, but there is still no standard, and until this point. And here is where the standard comes in. The goal is to consolidate all these different implementations into a single standard so we can scale this use case and potentially start building on top of it and widen the usability of token locking. So who can potentially benefit from this? Well, I think that there is like so many protocols and use case for token logins that the benefit is massive. Like as I was saying, like we have token lockers, we have launchpads, we have private sale agreements, we have both in escrow implementations, and additionally, the OTC market right now, it's kind of clunky if you think about it, depending on how you manage it. You go into Telegram, you make a deal, you have a spreadsheet. I'm going to send you this amount of tokens every month, this discount, this and that. And it's not really very user-friendly. There's a lot of trust. It's not necessarily permissionless. By leveraging this implementation, one person can potentially lock the tokens into an NFT and execute the OTC deal through an NFT marketplace, greatly enhancing the security of this process and actually being able to provide some scalability and also resellability to this asset. So here I have like a few of the many protocols that actually implement token locking that could greatly benefit from having a standard. As I was mentioning, we have like plenty of token locker apps, and all of these, Unicrypt, Headshift, Lockify, Team Finance, all of these token locking apps, they have their own implementation. Then we have like voting escrow applications such as CTO Lynex and Velodrome. They also represent locked assets over time. Even though they are particularly focused around governance, they are also applicable to this type of standard because at the end of the day, we are describing how assets are released over time. Additionally, all launchpads or most launchpads implement some shape or form of token locking on their sales. Again, like we could all be using the same standard, making the life easier for developers, for third-party integrations, for anyone that's actually remotely interested in token locking and tracking the token locking. Because for me, that's also a big piece of the upside here. Like imagine if you are a token unlocks. Let's say you are token unlocks and you are actually trying to basically track all the token unlocks over time. Like you want to track the VC token unlocks, you want to track the team token unlocks. And if you are like this protocol, like I wouldn't wish to be the dev of token unlocks because they literally need to go to each individual protocol, look at the smart contracts, figure out how everything is tracked, and do a custom implementation for each individual vesting contract. And why does this happen? Because there is no standard. If we had a standard interface to describe how tokens are released over time, we would have the ability to seamlessly integrate all vesting contracts at once without having to actually go one by one. On a similar fashion, when you're dealing with secondary markets, you actually leverage additional functionality that can greatly enhance the experience when trying to do an OTC deal over locked tokens. Let's say you participated on a public sale or on a private sale, and instead of getting the traditional smart contract locker, which we see here, or even worse, the mechanical transfer, which I see some people still do, that they just manually send you the tokens every month. Instead of getting this, imagine you get an ERC 5725, which is represented by an NFT whose ownership entitles the release of assets over time. So basically, by holding this NFT that represents the release of assets, you have a claim over the assets that get released over time. But let's say you are 2 months into your investment, you suddenly decide, okay, I might need some additional cash flow. I want to sell this on the secondary marketplace. And yeah, if you have a smart contract locker, the traditional method, your asset would be tied to your wallet generally. And this doesn't really facilitate OTC deals. This doesn't really facilitate transacting on secondary marketplace. It's not really scalable. I've seen people selling private keys just to like be able to operate with this type of locking. And I don't believe this is really scalable, and it also doesn't really represent the size of this use case and how many people are actually trying to have secondary marketplace for this type of assets. With ERC 5725, by turning this into a transferable NFT, we give access to those investors and holders to actually be able to interface with secondary marketplace without all the hassles that previous solutions had while also enhancing the user experience and adoption by implementing a standard. This gives us access to third-party integrations, as the example I was bringing up. Token unlocks can very easily scale into this standard and even be able to provide more information. We have transfer rights over the local tokens, and for the development and those who are like trying to figure how to do vesting, it really lowers the operational costs because there is no guessing room now. Like you just go there, you download the library, you install it, and suddenly you have vesting of contracts. You don't need to guess what is the best implementation, how to do it. Is this standard? Yes, it is standard. It has been approved. So this greatly streamlines the development process and also enables the transactability of the secondary marketplace. So all in all, we have quite a few benefits. My favorite one by far is the adoption and the third-party integrations. Like I think that being this a use case that has been around for so long and we still don't have a standard, for me, when I found out, I remember when I was doing my first vesting contract, like my first impulse was to go to the Ethereum standards and search for vesting. And I didn't see anything, and honestly, I couldn't believe it. That is when everything started in my head, and I started working on this. And I do think that the adoption we can see by having this standard can potentially be massive. I'm honestly waiting and hoping for someone that builds a dedicated secondary marketplace for this kind of asset. Right now, again, this is a massive use case. I mean, ask yourselves, do we have secondary marketplace for vested tokens or for locked tokens? We don't really have. And I think one of the reasons that we don't have this type of marketplace is because there is no standard that justifies the existence of this marketplace. But once token lockers start using this, Launchpad start using this, private side starts distributing the tokens with this standard, the marketplace is going to make so much sense. And I do foresee seeing many marketplaces that actually dedicate themselves to sell tokens that are released over time. Additionally, by having this, you remove a lot of the guesswork from the development. We have a secure and standardized guidelines that allows the developers to just go and get to it. They don't need to think a lot about it. Also, one important piece of this implementation that was very carefully taken into consideration is that it's actually very flexible and customizable. The idea of doing something like this, particularly when someone is going for a standard interface, is to not limit the developers that are trying to use it. If you're a developer, you might have your own crazy ideas, you might want to do your own thing, and you can do this. This is super flexible. It's just it just requires start time, end time, and claim, basically. Everything in between, the developer can do whatever they want. As long as you're releasing tokens over time, you're likely gonna be able to describe the release of the assets using our standard. And it just doesn't really limit the development of anything. And finally, by representing the token locks as NFTs, we enable many type of use cases that I probably can't even think of all of them at this moment. And I find that quite interesting, in my opinion. And also something to also mention here, because I wouldn't be surprised if someone here is thinking, well, but I don't really want my locked tokens to be transferable. I think it makes sense. There may be many people, many use cases, and and a lot of protocols that maybe they don't really want the transferability. And what I have to say here is that at the end of the day, 721 doesn't mean that soul-bound tokens can't exist. You can create an NFT that is soul-bound to an account, and this is 100% supported by the standard. So if you actually want to use the standard but get the vested assets soul-bound to the underlying wallet, meaning that they can't transfer it, it's totally possible. The transferability is optional. Of course, I think it's better, but any developer can potentially implement this without transferability based on their use case. and that wouldn't break the standard or be non-standardized within the implementation. So well, what's next? What can be done with this information? Well, I mean, if you are building a launchpad, a token locker, or considering even building the secondary marketplace for this, please contact me. I'm more than open to support anyone that is trying to build something leveraging this technology. I'm really looking to see the adoption. I'm really looking to see this grow and scale. So anyone that wants to build anything around this, you can just contact me, and I'm gonna be open to support technically, discuss ideas. Honestly, I really enjoy this. And yeah, there are like a few implementations out there to try out. A-Bond has a bonds implementation around this standard. You can basically buy bonds represented by NFTs that release tokens over time. I really like the art behind it. Highly encourage it. There is 5725 Cafe, which is a website we built with my colleagues. It's basically a playground for the standard. Eventually, it's going to be a multi-chain token locker. Of course, if you're a developer, reading through the interface, looking it on Ethereum EAP, participating on the conversations, on the forums. We do have a thread to discuss this. And well, if you want to reach out to me, you can find me on Telegram, on Twitter, and I'm more than open to answer questions, give feedback, and support anyone that is looking to build this and leverage the standards. So yeah, I think that's most of it from my side. I would love for us to work together to take this standard to the next level and scale token locks with the transparency they deserve.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the invitation. It has been my pleasure. I don't know if there are any questions or room for questions. But yeah, thanks everyone. It has been honestly a pleasure. I'm a little bit surprised by the size of the audience. Great event, by the way. And yeah, let's keep building.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good day. Bye.
You too.
Ти ще не бачив, скільки було на попередньому спікері. Мені здається, це ідеальний момент, коли треба зрозуміти. Не треба соромитись говорити англійською. У вас нормальна англійська у всіх. А? Ні, ну чувак пічить, щось робить. Ну, це дуже прикольно. Так, у нас останній спікер. Я прям не знаю, який це буде акцент. У нас просто така ярмарка акцентів. Були і французи, і все. Ну, Емілі нормальний на акцент. Отже, у нас зараз останній спікер – це продукт-лід в MetaMask Крістіан Монтоя. Якщо він... нема його, так? Да? Нема Крістіана Монтоя, то... До речі, хто йде з залу, тому XP-шек не насиплять, якщо що. Вже є, так? Да? Все, супер. Крістіан Монтоя, ваші оплески, продукт-лід в MetaMask.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Christian.
Hopefully you can hear me.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm going to share my screen. All right. I think you can see these slides. Great. Okay. Let me go back to the beginning. That's my one mistake. All right. So today I'm going to be giving you an introduction on MetaMask Snaps. I'm the developer innovation lead at MetaMask, and I'm very excited to be presenting today. Thank you so much for having this event. And I think it's just amazing. There's a full crowd. So really excited to be talking to you about MetaMask. So to start out, I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. So I've been at MetaMask for 2 years. I've also been a user of Ethereum since late 2016, so almost 8 years now. I led the open beta launch of MetaMask Snaps. We launched back in September, and I'll tell you more about what that is. I'm now the head of developer innovation, both the wallet API and Snaps, which we call the open platform frontier of MetaMask. It's what developers use to build with MetaMask. And I support the developers who are building products with MetaMask and the users who benefit from their innovations. So what is MetaMask Snaps? Well, with MetaMask Snaps, users can personalize their wallet by adding new features, such as support for protocols beyond Ethereum, social integrations, security products, and even new custom APIs in MetaMask. And all of this is possible with snaps. So each snap is like an add-on for MetaMask that you can install. So you can think of them as applications that run inside of MetaMask. And when you install them, they give you new features, new experience, new capabilities, and so forth. And so the new features that are currently enabled by snaps includes things like interoperability, security, notifications, decentralized identity, and we even have snaps that provide MPC and two-factor authentication wallets. And in the open beta, which is what we call our current phase of our launch, we have over 50 different snaps from community developers enabling new features across a variety of categories. And this means even you can be a developer that can be part of our directory, and I'll tell you more about how to get involved later. And as we add new APIs to the Snaps platform, even more features become possible. So we're continuing to build new APIs that power new experiences and enable new types of applications to run inside of MetaMask. So now you're probably wondering, okay, I can install an application into MetaMask from a third-party developer, but is it really safe, right? I know most people would be concerned about installing an application into their wallet where they store their funds. So I like to tell people that Snaps is first and foremost a security product, and that's because we've designed it with security at the foundation. And I love to be presenting as part of this Linea event because Linea is also a big believer in security at every stage of their technology stack. So let me explain how Snaps works. So each snap is isolated, meaning that it can only access its own data. It cannot access your data in MetaMask, it cannot access your Ethereum accounts, and it can't do anything beyond what it's allowed to do by MetaMask. And so the Snaps platform uses permissions. So Snaps actually have to request permission to do things like access the internet or to send notifications. It's very similar to how if you're using Zoom in your browser, it'll ask for access to your microphone and your camera, or if you're installing an application on your phone, it has to ask for permission to store files on your phone. Also, when you install a snap, you're able to verify lots of information about the snap, where it's hosted, the source code behind the snap, the author of the snap, and all of the permissions being requested. And all of this information is presented to you so you can make informed decisions. Now, the way Snaps works is it actually uses a limited set of JavaScript. So there are certain things that you can do in JavaScript that you cannot do in Snaps. Also, they run in an isolated environment inside of MetaMask so that they don't have access to things like your browser, the websites you're visiting. They can't inject anything into the websites. And so they're very limited and isolated. And we do this to ensure that they're safe to run inside of your wallet. So even if a snap crashes, it doesn't crash your wallet and it can't lock you out of your wallet. So again, snaps are self-custodial. You're installing them inside of MetaMask. They're installed on your device and they live in your wallet. And what you install is entirely up to you. So I want to give a little history lesson why this is so important. It's actually super interesting how we came to this point to having this application platform. So back in 2019, one of the co-founders of MetaMask, Dan Finley, was working with Agoric, which is a company that actually developed hardened JavaScript as sort of the security layer of Snaps. And they were working on this idea of how could you add support for Cosmos to MetaMask. So Cosmos is an alternative blockchain. It is different from Ethereum, has a different smart contract language, a different address format. Everything about it works very differently. It's not EVM based. And so MetaMask is an Ethereum wallet through and through. It can connect to Ethereum networks and Ethereum equivalent networks like Linea, right? But it can't connect to Cosmos. So they were exploring how could you build a modular system to add support for something that MetaMask doesn't already support, like a non-Ethereum network like Cosmos. And they actually worked on this with Agoric and they demoed it. It was Dan Finley and the founding engineer of Snaps, Eric Marks. They demoed this add-on system at DevCon 5 in 2019. Okay, so this was almost 5 years ago that they demoed the very first version of Snaps. And back then they didn't even call it that. And so over time, it took years to continue to build out the system and make it something that developers could actually build with and do lots of cool things with it. But the idea is very simple. Okay, if you think of things that you wish MetaMask could do that MetaMask doesn't already do, like add support for Bitcoin, get notifications from Lens, send to a .nft address or a .lens or a like send to a Farcaster address, sign transactions with your phone, all of this different functionality that you probably think, I wish MetaMask could do this or that. with snaps, developers can actually build those features themselves, right? They don't have to wait for us to integrate it. They can build the feature in a snap, and then they can make those features available to users very easily. So you're probably wondering, okay, this sounds really cool, but I still don't really understand what this means. Seeing is believing, so let's look at some snaps. So we have a snaps directory to snaps.metamask.io. And if you have the MetaMask extension installed in your browser, you can come to this directory and you can see all of the different snaps that are available. And there's a huge variety of snaps that are here. And I'll show you what some of them do. So this is a transaction insight snap. It's a security product. It's called DDAO. And in order to install it, there's just a few simple steps. I connect to the snap. I install it into MetaMask. It shows me the permissions that the snap uses. And once I install it, it's now inside of my MetaMask wallet. And when I go into my snaps menu, there it is. There's DDAO. Okay. And now the way that I can show you how the snap works is if I go to make a transaction request, here is the snap that I just installed. And the snap is able to show me information about the transaction before I commit this transaction. Okay. So I can actually see, hey, this is going to have an error. And I can even go to this website to see the full simulation. There's another snap here called Wallet Guard. Similar idea. It actually says, this is a known malicious address that I'm interacting with. This address was associated with phishing or hacking. So now I know that I should back out and I should not do this transaction. Another example of a really cool snap that I'll show you. And for this one, I'm actually going to go to a dApp. So this is Radium. This is a dApp that's similar to like Uniswap. But this is a Solana dApp, and you might be wondering, okay, what am I doing on a Solana dApp with MetaMask? Well, I can connect my wallet. Let's see here if this will work. Here we go. This is MetaMask snap here, Soulflare, keep this window open, connect. And now I'm connected with my MetaMask wallet. So I have the Solana snap inside of MetaMask. And what this snap allows me to do, it's called Solana Wallet. And what I can do is I can actually swap Solana assets on here. So I can swap here, swap Solana for Radium, and it's going to show an approval. And this pop-up is generated by the snap. And this is actually performing a Solana transaction inside of MetaMask. I click approve. The swap is performed. The transaction, I can view it on SolScan. So it's actually going to create a swap transaction. And this is going to be using my actual Solana, my Solana account. And there it is. So this is a Solana account performed with a MetaMask wallet. I don't have a Solana wallet installed on my computer, just using this Solana snap. And I can even see right here, this is the balance that I have. I have a little bit of Radium now. Another example that I'll show you really quickly. So if I go back here and then go to all of the available snaps. So we built this cool MetaMask support snap. I can add it to MetaMask. And this allows you to actually communicate with our support team through your MetaMask wallet. And the ticket is actually stored inside of MetaMask. So I can connect to this website and I can sign in with Ethereum, which I just do with my wallet. And then I can actually create a ticket. So I'm signing in and now I'm going to contact support. Okay, so there's a whole conversation here. And this allows me to then create a support ticket, which I'm not able to do at the moment. But there's probably some reason why I can't do it. Here we go. Okay, so now I'm connected to this website and the support ticket. Okay, it's here. Okay, so now I'm going to show you a few more features that you can do with snaps. So this is, I'm running Flask here, which is a developer preview of MetaMask, and it allows me to run snaps that are not live yet. So I can ask this snap a question. Is this presentation going well? Okay, query. This is a pop-up generated by the snap, and it actually has images. This is just a snap that returns random answers, and it says, certainly, this is going well. I can also say, can I have 1 Bitcoin? And it can generate an image here. So you can actually embed images inside of a snap. And so I want to show you actually, this is a snap that we've been working on. And this is one that we're going to launch pretty soon. So we've actually been building a snap for tracking your Linea LXP balance. So your Linea XP balance from like activations. And the cool thing about this snap is you don't have to be connected to Linea to see the balance, but it also shows you your proof of humanity status. So I'm going to get my address. So I've just been doing the Linea Park, which isn't complete yet. So when I put this here, you'll see that I haven't got a balance yet. So I can actually find the snap in my menu and open it, and it shows me here's my address. My balance is 0. The LXP hasn't been minted to my address yet, and my proof of humanity status is not verified. And if I want to view my balance on Linea Scan, I can open that link. Or if I want to go complete proof of humanity, I can do that here. And I can also access the various activations. So just to show you really quickly how this works, I'm going to show you for an account that does have LXP already and has also completed proof of humanity. So I'm just going to uninstall the snap really quickly and then do another one here. Okay. This is how you remove a snap. And then I'm going to install it again. And I'm going to use this other address here, submit. And now when I go to view the tracker, it shows the balance, 4,438, and the proof of humanity status is verified for this address. And I can click here to explore the Linea Voyage activations. Okay, so this is a very simple snap. We've built it in about a week, and it just is able to use Linea Scan and the Proof of Humanity website and Verax. So it actually uses Verax to check the Proof of Humanity status, and it's able to display all of that inside of MetaMask. Even if I'm not connected to Linea, I can view my balance using that snap. So this is just an example of the kinds of cool experiences that you can build into snaps. And you can think of all sorts of use cases where a user might want more information in their wallet, or they might want access to special features, or protocol information, things like that. Now you can build those with snaps. You can build snaps that use your Linea dApp. Maybe you deploy a dApp on Linea and you want to do notifications inside of MetaMask, or certain features that you want to embed inside the wallet where people can interact with your dApp even when they're not on your website. Now you can build those types of experiences with snaps. So this is the snaps directory that I showed you, snaps.metamask.io. All of the snaps that are listed there have been audited and by third-party security auditors. They've been reviewed by our team, and I showed you the different categories that are available. There's interoperability, security, communication, and even account management. And also, if you're interested in building your own snaps, we actually have a website that's like a builder onboarding. You can come here and learn about how to build snaps. There's videos that you can watch. There's a form where you can go sign up and join our builder program, where we have a team that will work with you and help you get started building your own snaps. If you know JavaScript and TypeScript, if you've ever done anything with Node.js, then you can learn very quickly. You can learn to build your first snap in about 5 minutes by following one of our tutorials. And in our documentation, we have guides, example code, and many more resources that you can use to get started. So that's everything that I wanted to share with you today. I would love to see you all start playing with snaps, try them out, give us feedback. You can also start building your own snaps and join the builder program. And I would love to see the cool things that you build. And you can join us on Warpcast, follow the MetaMask account, and join the MetaMask channel and tell us about your experience using snaps, building snaps with Linea, and anything else that you might be interested in building with MetaMask. Thank you.
Thank you. Absolutely the best presentation for today. Thanks. Yes. Дякую всім, що прийшли. Я хотів сказати, що насправді дуже крутий івент вийшов. Я не знав, як вийде, тому що дуже багато онлайн-спікерів, незрозуміло. Але насправді це дуже круто, що під час війни в нас відбувається івент, на який приходить спікати Head of Linea, приходить чувак з MetaMask. Ну, коротше, це дуже високий рівень, і я навіть не уявляю, що буде після війни. Ну, я уявляю, я завжди мрію про це. Що буде відбуватися після війни, тому що ці люди вже нас знають, вже знають, що українське ком'юніті дуже круте і сильне, і тому треба продовжувати це робити. Кожен, мабуть, знайде щось для себе в таких івентах. Розробники можуть щось знайти у технарів, там, як робити снапси, чи як працювати з лінією, розробляти якісь там складні штуки. Дропери, мабуть, обліплять Андрюху і будуть питати, як пройти оці всі квести. Хтось захоче до містера. Ну, коротше, кожен знайде щось своє, тому дякую, що приходите. Ми будемо робити це надалі. У нас зараз починається нетворкінг, і я вам бажаю дуже гарно і продуктивно понетворкати. Дякую, що прийшли.